message for these businesses, a few that I visited yesterday. It's just a matter of time that someone is going to bring lawsuits against your business on the civil side, where their families have been harmed. We're going to ban your stores. We're going to ban your stores before we leave here for good, whether it's in May or July or August, whenever session is over. We in the Senate, and I believe in the House, will stand together and pass this legislation. My recommendation is, if you're watching, I know a lot of people are watching from out there who are in this business, you might want to voluntarily close your doors.
Well, my initial knee-jerk reaction to that is you might want to think about getting yourself some green beans, because you seem a bit uptight. How are we still fighting the battle against ignorance, lies, and propaganda concerning the green beans in 2025? How are states like Texas not doing their due diligence and taking a look around? Look at my state of Illinois. It's generating vast sums of tax revenue off the legalization of green beans. Look at Colorado, where you have things happening in Colorado. There's one area in Colorado that has raked in so much money in tax revenue as a result of the legalization of the green beans, that they're able to put together a scholarship for local kids. Kids in Colorado are getting money to go to school because of the legalization of green beans, with no adverse effect to the community whatsoever. And here we have states like Texas, as well as many other red states. Texas is not alone in this, but many other red states that are still fighting against the legalization of, sorry, we have to call it green beans, because on certain social media platforms, if you call it what it actually is, your content can be taken down as violating terms of condition. But if you're of my generation, you came up with the Nancy Reagan Just Say No campaign, which was a failure of biblical proportions. And then as we had kids, our kids were subjected to the DARE campaign, right? My son is 13 years old. He's in 7th grade. And my wife went out to have a couple of drinks with an old coworker. The two women hadn't seen each other for quite some time. They went to a local Mexican joint, had a few margaritas to kind of catch up. And when she got home, my son had the sack to look at his mother and go, "Where were you?" She goes, "I went out for a couple of drinks with so-and-so." And he goes, "And you drove home?" And she goes, "No, so-and-so drove home." And he's like, that's just not safe. Fair enough. Yes, you're right. Drinking and driving is not safe. But it kind of set us back a little bit that he seemed offended that she went out and had a couple of drinks. Well, we don't really drink a whole lot. There's dust on the alcohol bottles in our pantry because we're not drinkers. A couple of drinks a year, that's it. A few weeks later, my wife was going through some bad times, and she had a glass of wine. Poured herself a glass of wine in the kitchen. And my son looked at her and said, "You gonna get drunk? How many of those are you gonna have?" And she was like, "Wait, what the fuck's going on?" So we had a conversation with him, and I asked him, "Why are you so offended when your mom drinks?" And he goes, "Because that's not normal." I go, "You do know that people drink all the time. You know that your friends' parents drink." He goes, "Yeah, I know that they drink. It's not normal for you guys to drink." And I said, "But when your mom takes her edible, at night, you have no issue with it whatsoever." He goes, "Because that's normal." And it was at that point in time that I realized that we had raised our son in an environment where alcohol was not the norm. Getting fall down drunk on the weekends was not the norm, but rather cannabis was the norm. Green beans were the norm. Where the legalization and the consumption of a product that has been vilified for the past few generations was not vilified in this generation anymore, at least not in the eyes of our son, right? Our daughters grew up around it. Now, I never smoked in front of them. They've never seen me do it. To this day, in their 20s, they've never seen me do it. Because unlike with alcohol, it does put off a byproduct that can get into their lungs. So I do it in my office, out on the deck and shit like that, and never in front of them. But they still grew up knowing the normality of it in my world. And in his world, if you go to work all day and come home and start pounding beers because you're off work and I'm going to fucking put a buzz on, that's not normal to him. But if you go to work all day long and you come home and you or pop an edible, totally okay. And while it doesn't change the world, while it doesn't change the attitude of this country, I did my bit for King and Country. I produced children that don't view green beans as the scourge that they have been portrayed to be over the past several decades. We did our bit for King and Country by not raising a couple of people who are going to get drunk and get behind the wheel of a car and cause some damage. People who understand that there's a time to take your green beans and there's a time to not take your green beans, and you don't need to get fall down sloppy drunk or fall down sloppy high in order to be able to put on a buzz and round your edges if that's what you so choose to do as an adult in this world. We're still holding on to the old propaganda here, and people like this, people like this should no longer be in power. Joe Biden, that was one of the issues that I had with Joe Biden. He still believed it was a gateway drug. I vehemently disagreed with Joe Biden and his position when it came to the green beans. At least when he initially got into office. He evolved somewhat, but we're still not all the way there. So, guys, we got to get past this old school BS propaganda when it comes to green beans. You've been lied to your whole life.